Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a very interesting review of a knife that I was able to get a hold of through the Apex Pass Around, and this is a Kansept knife that they were able to share with us. Really cool. This is called the Reedus. I don't know if you can see that right there, the Reedus. This is S35VN blade steel, which is, I think, really cool. It's a frame lock with titanium scales. It is titanium all the way through, and it's got some deep milling, so definitely can see some nice weight relief on that. Frame lock, I do not know who the designer is. I'm going to assume this is a Kansept inside design, if you will. But they are the manufacturer, and they did create this knife. I really like the materials. It has a nice look to it, very chamfered, everything around. But let's talk a little bit about the materials. So this is a steel, deep pocket carry clip steel. It's not super deep, but it is a steel clip. You can definitely check that out by the magnet there. But it is titanium as far as the scale is concerned, so nothing sticks to that. These are T8 screws all the way around, which I think is really cool. And even the deep pocket carry clip is T8. That's nice. There are Volcano thumb studs here, but they are kind of difficult to get to. On the backside reminds me a little bit of my Chris Reeve Umnumzon. Really hard to get to on the backside, but it's still possible. On the right side, a little easier to get to, and it does have a fuller that you can definitely get to with your right hand. I would say with the left hand, yeah, I have not really been able to work this one with my left hand at all, nor can I do a reverse flick with my left hand. I just cannot deploy that knife at all. Yeah, oof, man, I almost hurt myself there. It just doesn't deploy left-handed. So deployment is going to be right hand only with a reverse flick right hand only like that. And then if you're left-handed, you're going to be able to just do the thumb stud. That is it. So, you know, kind of limited. It is a cool, nice chamfered all the way around, so nothing sharp, which is really nice. So you have thumb studs and you have the thumb hole, fuller hole, whatever you want to call that, right? It's got some nice texturing on the scales, which gives it a unique design. I think that is a nice little touch, right? It's nice and rounded back here. You're not going to be digging in with a sharp edge. One of those things that I really like the giant mouse knives, but every giant mouse knife I've had, they've had their little lanyard hole that's there. It just digs into you, and it's so uncomfortable. And I usually get a bruise before I even get a chance to finish unboxing, and I just can't deal with that. So every giant mouse knife I've had returned. They just didn't work, and so I've kind of given up on them. And I guess you know, maybe I'll get lucky one of these days and find one that's a little rounded and doesn't dig into your hand and leaves you a bruise or whatever. But this one doesn't. It's very comfortable, so that's nice. That is definitely a benefit there. When you do get a grip, you know, definitely can get a full grip there. A nice little curve, easy access to the frame lock. The frame lock does engage. You can see that up. It does engage up. I would say a good 30%. Right? It's got a steel bar insert, which is also an over travel stop, so that's really nice. You're not going to worry about bending the frame lock, the lock bar out. And then you've got the steel clip here. It does add as a second over travel stop. It does block that a little bit and pushes in. But once you get past that, it's pretty smooth for the action. It is caged ceramic ball bearings. I'm not sure if skiffs fit in there. I wouldn't know, because we're not allowed to take these apart. These are directly from the manufacturer, and I want to thank Kansept for allowing me to just check it out. This was my first Kansept knife that I've ever handled, and I have to admit, it's cool. This aesthetic doesn't quite speak to me. It's a little different, but I like some of the overall quality of design. I think there's some potential here, and I suspect other variants, other designs are going to be something that will appeal to me, but it does open the door for me to look at some of those other designs, because I like the quality of this knife. I think that does lend itself to being entertained more so. There are some knives I've tried that, you know, the aesthetics didn't speak to me. Excuse me, the aesthetics didn't speak to me, but the quality and the craftsmanship was just so that I probably would never consider them, right? You know, there's some deal breakers, some dangerous things, some uncomfortable things that just would ruin it. And this doesn't do that. I like some of that. Just this particular design is just a little different. But for those of you guys who love this design, you're going to really enjoy this. I think it's a cool design if the aesthetics speak to you, right? So if this design, this look really jumps out at you, this is going to be a cool knife for you guys to check out. I definitely would agree with that. So the thumb studs work, the fuller hole works. It is titanium. It is milled out, so it's nice and light. The cutaway, you know, is relatively okay. The backside's not great, but the access to the frame lock really nicely cut away. A nice angled here, chamfered, so it's not a hard cutting into your finger. I've had some knives that I just really loved. I wanted to keep, but it was so sharp when you put your finger in there. It was just a deal breaker. I got meaty fingers. They're not little thin dainty fingers, and I can't get in there. I need some nice chamfering where I can put a little pressure and move it out, you know, and this does it. It's comfortable. It's not digging in like some other knives I've had that just really broke my heart, that just were a deal breaker because of that. So this is definitely not a deal breaker. Very smooth, very comfortable. I could open and close this knife all day long and my fingers aren't going to be tired or hurting. There are some knives that you dig in there, after a while it's going to be uncomfortable, right? You're not going to be able to do much with it. So there is that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the measurements and weigh in and all that good stuff. So let's see how much this knife weighs. Oh, we need to zero that out. All right, here we go. So 3.87 ounces, 3.87 ounces. Not bad, 3.87 ounces. You know, with all the milling and everything that goes on, that's not bad at all. So let's see the weight of that. All right, overall it's 8-inch knife. We got a blade that's 3.5 inches, so it's almost good dimension, almost perfect ratio. It's a little heavier than the 3.5, so you know some people are gonna say it's good, it's bad, whatever. The handle, as far as if you go right here, you got little 3 3/4, but if you go to the very front where you could choke up, you got about 4 1/4 inches of handle, which is nice because if you choke up, you definitely got a lot of room. If you even hold here, my medium to medium large hands are large widthwise, medium lengthwise, so large, extra large hands definitely can get a full grip. If you choke up, double extra large, even triple extra large could get a full grip. There's no jimping, but it's nice and flat, and if you're doing a push cut, you can definitely get up there for that. You can definitely choke up here for a nice precision cut. One thing I did notice, it's a full flat grind with a beautiful satin finish, which is done really well. There's sort of a little swedge here. I don't know if you'd call this a swedge. No, it's more flat. It's chamfered, so it could be mistaken for a swedge, but it's nicely chamfered. There's kind of a roundedness, no sharp edges can dig into, which is cool. But it looks like a pseudo kind of a Tonto kind of blade, but it's rounded, it's belly. It's got a flat back here, so I don't know, you know, I don't know what you want to call that, right? But this is sort of a dual grind because it's flat this way, so you're definitely going to want to sharpen that edge and then that edge. This has 2 different angles on it. But this allows, you know, you can see how thick and sturdy that edge is, and it still has a little pokey little tip there, good for getting into boxes, you know, breaking things down, opening cat food, dog food, what have you. So there is that benefit. I think that's kind of cool. I think you'll definitely enjoy that. But it comes to a relatively thin edge, but it's not going to be a super thin slicer, but definitely a workhorse. I mean, if you're going to use a knife beat up, this has got a nice robust blade for hard work. It's going to hold up really nicely, and the titanium here locks up well. There's no blade rock. It's in there pretty solid. And let's look at that detent when it goes in. It should click in pretty well. Let's see. Yeah, clicks in pretty well. No blade rock. It's in. I mean, no detent lash or detent. I guess detent lash is really the term. It's definitely flat. I mean, definitely centered. So nicely centered there as well. So very cool. I like this. I like this about the blade. A lot of positive things as far as that is concerned. All right, so let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness while we're at it. All right, so here we go. So 140th hundredth of an inch. So it is right between 1/10 and 2/10 of an inch. It's closer to 1/10 of an inch, but it's almost right in between. That's a pretty robust, thick blade. That's got some heft to it. It's definitely got some thickness to it. So it's definitely not a super thin blade. So you know, if you wanted a hard use blade, this is definitely going to be that. So there's a lot of benefit with that. All right, so let's look at the knife category for a knife like this. It's definitely going to be around $179 is what I saw the price range is for this knife right now. So this is definitely within, I would call, a regular price range. It's under $250, under $300, and it's definitely over $100. So for the material, S35VN blade steel with the titanium, pretty thick, robust, thick blade stocks, looks like Cade ceramic ball bearings. That's all going to be pretty nice. I do wish it was considered a titanium clip. I think that would be a nice touch. And because the titanium anodizes differently than the steel, it really does stand out. I mean, I get it matches the thumb studs, and maybe that's what they were going for. I wish there was a little better cutout here. That would be really nice for this knife category. You know, if you're gonna want to charge this much, some of the ergonomics need to fit a little bit better, I think. The purpose of this knife, to me, this would be an everyday EDC. It's not like a collector knife. It's not something you buy and you store. It's something you would want to use, hard use, and use quite often. It does flip well. It doesn't lend to if you've got gloves and stuff, because of the thumb studs are so close there to the scale, I think. Doesn't do any sort of reverse flicking. I can't get it to reverse flick. Every time I do it, I'll just about injure my finger. So definitely don't consider doing that. You know, if you put a little jimping on here, this could have easily been maybe a front flipper as well. You know, nicely could have done that. And then you would have had some jimping up here for, you know, a little better grip and presentation. But hey, you know, that's their call. But I think that might have been a nice touch. All you had to do is move that back just a little bit, right? You had it in, and had this come up just a little bit rounded here, just about there. It would have been nice. You would have had a front flipper. You'd have an extra deployment method. But that's just my thoughts on there, right? Purpose, I mean, you can definitely everyday use for it. You got to be careful with the clip. It's steel clip. Once you bend those, they kind of distort and bend out of the way. I think you could probably get a Lynch clip or something, and titanium clip to replace that, which might be worthwhile. But then that's going to add extra cost to the overall costs of the knife. Let's talk a little bit about the ergos and feel. The handle design, I like the handle design. It is very square, but it is rounded and softened around every corner. It doesn't dig in. There's no sharp hot spots. I don't feel like it burning digging in. This, you know, it does come up a little bit of the ramp, but it's nice and rounded. Everything's chamfered nicely. None of that digs in really well. For me, I don't have any hot spots. I can grip this tight. I'm not feeling a burn inside, so that's nice. The deployment methods is a little bit to be lacking. You have thumb studs, you have the thumb hole. The front flipper works well with the right hand. The reverse flipper works well with the right hand. It's not super easy, and you got to make sure you get the right angle to get that up. And if you do it wrong, you're gonna hurt your thumb. You're gonna get that little burn, kind of like, you know, like you do with a flipper. Sometimes you flip it and you miss it, and boom, it just digs into your hand. Yeah, kind of get that thumb stud burn there as well. The fuller hole does work for a reverse flip. On this side, I cannot, for whatever reason. Yeah, if I do this, holding the knife like this, I might be able to kind of open it, but I can't flip it out. It just doesn't work with this frame lock. There's no way I can get around that. Any pressure on that frame lock, and it's not coming out whatsoever. That's a bummer, but just know that. As far as closing design, it's pretty smooth. Frame lock, easy access with the cutaway, nice chamfering there. Drops really, really well, so it is comfortable. Once you flick it open, and the closing is not going to be the uncomfortableness if you like to fidget with a knife. It's going to be more the deployment method, I think. So fidget factor, yeah, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. You have fuller holes, thumb holes, whatever you want to call them here, that are very minimally functional. I mean, it works with the right hand, and that's it. It doesn't work with the left hand. And even then, you've got to make sure you got a nice meaty finger that can get into that, because if you don't get your nail in there, if people don't have a way to get a nice meaty finger in there, they're not going to be able to use this. I would say for probably good half of the people, they're not going to be able to figure that out and use it, or have the meaty finger enough to get anything in there to do that. The thumb studs, not the most comfortable. I'm not a big fan of these quite at all. So that's a bummer. I wish there was a little more cutaway. I wish this lock bar was a little thinner. I wish, you know, the thumb studs were a little easier to get to and they weren't so harsh, right? They had a better angle at them, like I could come this way, you know, and if you had a little cutaway that had just a little angle to come up this way. There's a lot to be said for physics. Like, so this is not natural for me to come up this way, but that makes the deployment so much easier if the angle were like to lead me at that angle. But it does, it leads me to this angle, which digs into your thumb. So that would be my only suggestion. If they could redesign that would be a little, you know, engineering touch up that could really help this knife significantly. As far as closing, I think I already talked about that. We talked about the fidget factor. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. As 5 out of the fidget factor capabilities, it's a 5 out of 10. As far as executing that, I'm going to give it a 60%. It's a D. It is not one of my favorite knives to deploy and to carry. It's definitely, I would put it up there with my Chris Reeve Unumzant. And I love the look at the knife. I love the overall design of the knife. It was a cool knife. It's one of those knives you have and you go, that looks cool. You open it, you go, that looks cool. I mean, this also relatively looks cool. This does look like a big giant eyeball, you know, like like it's coming along and saying, you know, it's like a big stork or beak or something like that, right? Reminds me of some of the QSP penguins and stuff. But I don't know, as far as that is concerned. So fidget factor wise, yeah, I'm going to give it a 60%. It's a D. It's not a C. It's not okay. It's a little less than okay for me. It's not a knife that I would probably get. So as far as overall thoughts, is it recommended? No, I'm not going to put this in my recommended knife. I'm just not. I think it's a cool knife. I think it has a lot of potential. It does make me think of other Kansept knives that might be really cool, and definitely will open my eyes to check them out. I like the quality, the engineering, the craftsmanship is pretty good, but this design itself to me is just, it's not my cup of tea. And this could be purely an aesthetic thing. You know, for some of you guys who've had this, and if you have a Reedus and you love it and you just think it's the greatest thing next to sliced bread. I mean, the Vision R with the Snexlock, I was not a fan. I enjoyed the engineering about that one. I thought it was really cool, but it's just not my cup of tea. I'm not a fan. I won't recommend that knife. But some people love it. I mean, absolutely love it. Just out of this world. I think it's the greatest thing next to sliced bread, right? Even warm out of the oven sliced bread. But this one, yeah, I'm just not a fan of it, and it's not going to be a recommended knife. But I like the quality and the craftsmanship, and that's why I say that I'm speaking to you from my perspective of what I like. If this aesthetic speaks to you and you like everything about it and you just think it's cool, I will tell you it's made well. It is made well. It might be worth considering. It might be worth looking into. This could be that grail knife, that, you know, that great workhorse knife that you would just love, love, love to have in your collection. But if it doesn't speak to you, and if any of the aesthetic things that I seem to look for are similar to your aesthetic desires, you may not care for this, and you might take my review, you know, as a little help in maybe making a decision whether to buy or not to buy this knife. But I would love to check out some of the other Kansept knives after having checked this out. I'd love to see some of the other designs that maybe do speak to me more, and try them out. I mean, this was not bad at all. I had heard like action was terrible with a lot of Kansept knives. Action is beautiful. It really is. Really nice action. I just wish the thumb stud and some of the other things were just a little different. But that's just my cup of tea, you know, and so that's my thoughts on that. Not recommended, but I still think it's a great quality build-wise. So there you go. That's my thoughts. Hey, if you found this interesting, this content, this review, fun, interesting, or worthwhile, would you please consider liking this video? And if you've already liked this video, would you consider subscribing down below? Subscribing and liking the video really helps out the channel, allows me to produce more content, do more things. I think it just really would be great if you could. And if you've already subscribed, maybe consider hitting the notification button as well so you can be notified of future content when it's dropped. And, you know, that would be really awesome. And if you've done all that, hey, check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at, if I get that straight, at robs_nerdy_knives on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.